The ship cut through the darkness of space like a needle through silk. Inside the diplomatic vessel Unity's Hope, Captain Dae Kim stood on the bridge and watched the stars drift past. 3 more days until they reached Harmony Nexus. 3 more days until humanity met the Galactic Council for the first time. He rubbed his tired eyes and checked the time. It was late, but sleep felt impossible. This mission would change everything. Either humans would join the galactic community, or they would be alone among the stars forever. Behind him, the door opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador Hannah Park walked onto the bridge, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Dae and stood beside him, looking out at the endless black. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. Dae took the coffee and smiled. "Too much on my mind. We've spent 3 years preparing for this. Now it's almost here." Hannah nodded. She was 50 years old, with gray streaking through her black hair. She had spent most of her life studying alien cultures, learning everything humanity knew about the species that lived beyond Earth. It wasn't much. The Galactic Council kept to themselves and humans were new to space travel. "I've been reading the briefing files again," Hannah said. "Did you notice something strange? Every species profile has medical warnings attached, emergency protocols, instructions for what to do if a human gets too close." Dae frowned. "I saw that too. I thought maybe it was standard procedure. You know, different biologies and all that." "Maybe," Hannah said, but she didn't sound convinced. "Or maybe there's something about us that worries them." Before Dae could respond, Lieutenant Nari Han called out from the communication station. "Captain, we're receiving a message from Harmony Nexus. They're sending updated docking instructions." "Put it on screen," Dae said. A holographic display appeared in front of them. The message was written in several languages, including Earth's common tongue. Dae read it carefully, then read it again. "They want us to limit our delegation to 5 people, he said, looking at Hannah. "And we need to move slowly through their station corridors?" Nari turned in her chair. She was young, only 25, but brilliant with languages and technology. "That's what it says, Captain. They also ask that we give advance notice before entering any public areas." Hannah and Dae exchanged glances. Something felt off about these requests, but they couldn't figure out what. "Send a reply," Dae said. "Tell them we agree to their terms. Over the next 2 days, the crew prepared for the meeting." Dr. Yuna Choi, the ship's xenobiologist, spent hours in the lab reviewing everything they knew about the 47 species in the council. She was excited, almost vibrating with energy. Meeting alien life had been her dream since childhood. "Look at this," she said to Commander Taesong, who was reviewing security protocols nearby. "Most of these species come from planets with lower gravity than Earth, and their atmospheric oxygen levels are lower too. It's fascinating how different worlds create different forms of life." Tae looked up from his datapad. He was a serious man, former Special Forces, and he took his job of protecting the delegation very seriously. "Different how? Should I be worried?" No, Yuna said, waving her hand. "Just different. Their bones are less dense. Their muscle structures are adapted for lighter gravity. Some of them are actually quite fragile compared to Earth animals." "And compared to humans?" Tae asked. Yuna paused. "Well, yes. Compared to humans too, I suppose. But that's not surprising. Earth is a pretty harsh planet compared to most worlds." Tae made a note on his datapad and went back to work. But something about that conversation stuck in his mind. Fragile. Why did that word bother him? On the final day of the journey, the 5 members of the delegation met in the conference room. Along with Dae, Hannah, Yuna, Tai, and Nari, there was a support team of 20 other crew members, but only the 5 of them would step onto Harmony Nexus. "Let's go over the plan one more time," Hannah said, standing at the head of the table. "We dock at Harmony Nexus in 6 hours. We'll be greeted by a representative from the Velen Collective. They're one of the founding species of the Council." "What are they like?" Nari asked. Yuna pulled up a holographic image. The Velen looked like a tall, thin deer with 6 legs and large, gentle eyes. Its fur was silver blue and it stood about 7 feet tall. "They're herbivores," Yuna explained. "Very peaceful. They communicate through a combination of sounds and color changes in their fur. They're also very formal and polite. Don't make sudden movements around them. It's considered rude." "Got it," Tae said. "Slow and gentle." "After the greeting, we'll be escorted to our quarters," Hannah continued. "We'll have time to rest before the first council session tomorrow. That's when I'll present humanity's request for membership. Day leaned forward. What are our chances? Hana was quiet for a moment. Honestly, I don't know. We're offering trade, knowledge, and friendship. We're not asking for much in return, but we're also unknown. They might see us as a risk. A risk? Nari said. We're peaceful. We've never attacked anyone. They don't know that yet, Hana said softly. Trust takes time. The hours passed quickly. Before they knew it, Unity's Hope was approaching Harmony Nexus. The station was massive, a wheel spinning slowly in space. Lights glowed from thousands of windows. Ships from dozens of worlds hung in the docking bays like sleeping birds. It's beautiful, Yuna whispered. Day guided the ship toward their assigned dock. The process was smooth, almost too smooth. The station's automated systems did most of the work. Within minutes, they were locked in place. This is it, Hana said. She stood and smoothed her diplomatic robes. Everyone remember the protocols. Slow movements, quiet voices, respect their space. The five of them walked to the airlock. Through the small window, they could see the docking tunnel connecting their ship to the station. At the far end, several figures waited. The Velen greeting party, ready? Day asked. They all nodded. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The air that flowed in was cool and smelled faintly of flowers. The humans stepped through the tunnel and onto Harmony Nexus. The station was not what they expected. The corridors were wide, but the ceilings were low. The lighting was soft, almost dim. Everything had a delicate quality to it, like it was made of glass that might shatter if you breathed too hard. At the end of the corridor, 3 Velens waited. When they saw the humans approaching, their fur rippled with colors that Yuna didn't recognize. One of them stepped forward but kept a noticeable distance. Welcome to Harmony Nexus, the Velen said in perfectly clear human speech. I am Prill. I will be your guide. Hana bowed slightly the way they had practiced. Thank you for receiving us. We are honored to be here. Prill's eyes were wide, unblinking. The human delegation thought it was curiosity. They didn't realize it was fear. Please, Prill said, voice trembling slightly. Follow me to your quarters. Walk behind me. Not too close. The humans followed, their footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor. They moved at what felt like a normal pace to them. They didn't notice how the few other aliens in the hallway pressed themselves against the walls as the human delegation passed. They didn't see the security cameras tracking their every movement. They didn't hear the emergency broadcast warning station residents that the Death World species had arrived. They were simply excited to be there, to make history, to shake hands with new friends among the stars. They had no idea that every species on the station was terrified of them. Prill led the human delegation through the winding corridors of Harmony Nexus. The Velen guide walked ahead, constantly looking back over his shoulder. His fur kept changing colors, flashing patterns that Yuna wished she could understand. The station is quite beautiful, Hana said, trying to make conversation. How many species live here? Prill's voice was barely above a whisper. Representatives from all 47 council members reside here, plus support staff. About 3,000 beings in total. That must make for interesting cultural exchanges, Hana continued, smiling. Prill didn't respond. His legs were shaking slightly as he walked. They turned a corner and entered a wider corridor. This one had windows looking out into space. Day moved closer to the window to get a better view. As he walked, Prill dropped the datapad he was carrying. It clattered to the floor. Without thinking, Day's hand shot out. He caught the datapad before it could hit the ground. His reflexes were sharp from years of military training. To him, it was a simple, polite gesture. Here you go, Day said, holding out the datapad with a friendly smile. Prill looked at the datapad, then at Day's hand, then back at the datapad. His eyes went even wider. His legs buckled. The Velen collapsed onto the floor in a dead faint. What? Day said, stunned. What just happened? Alarm bells started ringing throughout the corridor. Security doors began to close. Within seconds, 3 medical teams arrived pushing floating stretchers. They surrounded Prill, carefully loading him onto one of the stretchers. A medical officer, a small blue creature with 4 arms, approached the humans, but it stayed several feet away, speaking through a translator device. Please remain calm, the translator said in a mechanical voice. Your guide experienced a medical episode. He will be fine. Please do not approach. Can we help? Yuna asked, taking a step forward. She was a doctor, after all. Her instinct was to assist. Stay back, the medical officer said, all four arms raised. The other medical personnel immediately formed a barrier between Yuna and their patient. The humans froze. They looked at each other, confused and concerned. What had they done wrong? Another Velen arrived, this one wearing what looked like an official uniform. I am Melon. I will escort you to your quarters. Please, this way. His voice was steady, but his fur was a solid dark color that Yuna suspected meant stress. They followed Melon in silence. No one spoke. The humans were too confused and worried. When they finally reached their quarters, Melon opened the door and gestured for them to enter. You will find everything you need inside, Melon said. Food has been prepared according to your species requirements. If you need anything, use the communication panel. Someone will assist you remotely. Is Prill all right? Hana asked. We didn't mean to. He will recover, Melon interrupted. Please rest. Tomorrow is an important day. Then he left quickly, the door sliding shut behind him. The quarters were spacious and comfortable. There were 5 separate sleeping rooms, a common area, and a food preparation space. But the humans barely noticed the accommodations. They gathered in the common area, still trying to understand what had happened. I just caught his data pad, Day said, running his hand through his hair. That's all I did. How does that make someone faint? Tay was already at the communication panel, accessing the station's public network. Let me see if I can find anything. There has to be an explanation. While Tai worked, Nari discovered something else. Look at this, she said, pointing to a screen on the wall. The station gave us access to security footage. I think they want us to see this. She activated the screen. Multiple camera angles appeared, showing the human delegation's arrival and walk through the station. Hana felt her stomach sink as she watched. From the camera's perspective, everything looked different. The humans weren't just walking. They were moving fast, much faster than any other being in the corridors. What felt like a normal pace to them looked like a rapid march to everyone else. When Day caught the data pad, the footage showed his hand moving in a blur. The catch happened so quickly that Prill probably didn't even see D move. One moment the data pad was falling. The next moment it was in Day's hand. To Prill it must have seemed like magic or something terrifying. Slow it down, Yuna said quietly. Nari adjusted the playback speed. At half speed they could see Day's reflexes in action. His eyes tracked the falling data pad. His hand moved to intercept it. His fingers closed around it gently. Even at half speed it looked incredibly fast. Oh no, Hana said. She sat down heavily on one of the couches. Tay found another video file. This one showed the greeting ceremony. When Hana bowed to Prill, it was meant to be a gesture of respect. But the camera showed something else. It showed how the humans' hands moved when they gestured, how their eyes tracked multiple moving objects at once, how they maintained perfect balance despite the station's rotation. There was also footage from when they shook hands with the greeting committee. The ceremonial staffs that the Velens held now had visible dents in them where human hands had gripped them during the handshake. The humans hadn't squeezed hard. They had just held on normally. But normal for a human was apparently crushing for a Velen artifact. We're scaring them, Nari said softly, just by being ourselves. Yuna pulled up her datapad and started cross-referencing files. Her fingers flew across the screen, pulling up planetary data, gravity measurements, atmospheric compositions. The more she read, the worse she felt. Look at this, she said, displaying her findings on the main screen. The average planet in the Galactic Council has 0.6 to 0.8 Earth gravity. Their oxygen levels are lower. Their weather is calmer. Their natural predators are smaller and slower. What does that mean? Dee asked. It means Earth is a death world, Yuna said bluntly. Everything on our planet is trying to kill us. Extreme weather, high gravity, aggressive predators, deadly diseases. We evolved to survive all of that. We're stronger, faster, and tougher than we realized because we had to be. Compared to most galactic species, we're basically walking tanks. The room fell silent. They all processed this information in their own way. The medical warnings, Hana said finally. The protocols. The request to move slowly. They're not being careful for their sake. They're being careful for ours. They think we might hurt them accidentally. Or on purpose, Tay added grimly. Think about it. A species as strong and fast as us showing up for the first time. They don't know if we're peaceful. They only know that we could be incredibly dangerous if we wanted to be. Day stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see ships coming and going from the station. Somewhere out there were 47 different species, all of them afraid of 5 humans who just wanted to make friends. "So what do we do?" he asked. "To cancel the meeting? Go home?" "We can't," Hana said. "This is too important. Humanity needs allies. We need trade partners. We need to be part of the galactic community. But how can we do that if everyone is terrified of us?" Nari asked. Yuna closed her datapad. "We be careful. We move slowly. We speak softly. We show them that even though we're strong, we're not violent. We prove that we can control ourselves. Is that enough?" Tay asked. No one had an answer. They spent the rest of the day in their quarters, reviewing protocols and practicing movements. They learned to walk more slowly, to make their gestures smaller and less sudden. They practiced speaking in quieter voices. Every action had to be deliberate and controlled. It was exhausting. Holding back felt unnatural, but they understood why it was necessary. As the station's artificial night cycle began, they each retreated to their rooms. Sleep didn't come easily. They all lay awake, thinking about tomorrow. The peace conference would begin. Humanity would make its case for joining the council. But first, they would have to convince 47 species that humans were friends, not monsters. Day stared at the ceiling of his room. He thought about Prill fainting, about the dented ceremonial staffs, about the fear in every alien's eyes. He thought about how it felt to be seen as a predator when all he wanted was peace. Tomorrow would be difficult. Tomorrow would test them in ways they never imagined. Tomorrow, everything would change. The Grand Council chamber was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It was a massive circular room with seats rising in tiers like an ancient amphitheater. Each section was designed for a different species, with custom environmental controls, seating arrangements, and communication systems. Holographic displays floated in the air, translating speeches into dozens of languages simultaneously. The human delegation entered through a door at the back. Immediately, every conversation in the chamber stopped. Thousands of eyes turned to watch them. The silence was heavy and uncomfortable. Hana led the way, walking as slowly and carefully as she could. Behind her came Day, Yuna, Tay, and Nari. They had dressed in simple diplomatic robes, nothing threatening. They kept their hands visible and their expressions neutral and friendly. A Velen official guided them to their seats. The humans had been placed in the very back row, as far from the central speaking platform as possible. As they sat, the other delegates visibly relaxed. Some even turned away, no longer watching the humans so intently. "They put us in the corner," Nari whispered. "At least they let us in," Hana whispered back. At the center of the chamber, on the highest platform, sat the High Counselor. His name was Vess, and he was very old even for a Velen. His silver-blue fur had faded to almost white, but his eyes were sharp and intelligent. "The council session will now begin," Vess announced. His voice was transmitted through speakers throughout the chamber. "Today we address the ongoing dispute between the Velen Collective and the Dranaxi Federation regarding mining rights in the Kalos system." 2 delegations moved to opposing sides of the speaking platform. The Velens looked exactly like Prill and the others the humans had met. The Dranaxi were completely different, aquatic beings in environmental suits filled with water. They moved on mechanical legs, their tentacled bodies floating inside transparent tanks on their backs. What followed were hours of debate. The Velens argued that they had discovered the Kalos system first. The Dranaxi countered that discovery didn't equal ownership. Both sides presented evidence, made speeches, and argued over tiny details. The humans listened carefully, taking notes. After the 3rd hour, Yuna leaned over to Hana. "They're missing an obvious solution," she whispered. "I know," Hana whispered back. "But we can't just interrupt." The arguments grew more heated. The Velen representative raised his voice. The Dranaxi representative's colors turned dark and angry. Other council members tried to mediate but made no progress. The situation was getting worse, not better. Finally, Vess called for a recess. "We will break for 1 hour. Perhaps cooler minds will prevail after rest." The chamber began to empty as delegates left to eat or discuss matters privately. The humans stayed in their seats, unsure of what to do. Should they mingle? Should they stay isolated? Everything felt like a potential mistake. Day made a decision. "Hana, you should talk to the High Counselor." Offer our help. What if he refuses? What if we make things worse? Hana asked. We're already the scary monsters in the room, Day said. We might as well try to be useful scary monsters. Tay nodded. I'll come with you. For security. But I'll stay back. Hana stood, smoothing her robes. She took a deep breath and began walking toward the central platform where High Counselor Vess was reviewing documents. Every step felt like walking through deep water. She moved slowly, deliberately, keeping her hands at her sides. As she approached, security personnel materialized from nowhere. They formed a loose circle around Vess, ready to act but trying not to appear threatening. Hana stopped at what she hoped was a respectful distance. High Counselor Vess, she said, her voice gentle and calm. May I speak with you? Vess looked up. His fur rippled with colors that Hana couldn't interpret. But he didn't run. He didn't call for more security. He simply nodded. Ambassador Park, he said. You wish to address me? I wanted to offer humanity's perspective on the dispute, Hana said. We're outsiders. Sometimes a fresh view can help. Several nearby delegates had stopped to watch. Hana could feel their eyes on her, judging, waiting to see if the human would do something violent or frightening. Vess was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You may present your thoughts to the full council when we reconvene. I am curious to hear what a Death World species thinks of our problems. There it was. Death World species, said casually as if it were just a fact and not an insult. Hana kept her expression neutral and bowed slightly. Thank you, High Counselor. I am honored. She returned to her delegation, heart pounding. I'm presenting after the recess, she told them. What? Nari said. Already? We just got here. I know, Hana said. But it's our chance. We show them we can think, reason, and solve problems. We show them we're more than just muscles and reflexes. The hour passed too quickly. Soon the chamber was full again. Delegates returned to their seats and Vess called the session back to order. Before we continue the dispute, Vess announced, Ambassador Park of the human delegation has requested to speak. We will hear her perspective, Hana stood. The walk to the central platform felt like a mile. Every eye in the chamber was on her. She could feel the fear, the curiosity, the judgment. She reached the platform and turned to face the assembled council. Thank you for allowing me to speak, she began. Her voice was steady despite her nerves. I have listened to both the Velen Collective and the Dranaxi Federation present their cases. Both have valid points. Both feel they have been wronged. She activated a holographic display showing the Kalos system. 3 planets orbited a yellow star. The dispute centers on this system, Hana continued. But I notice that you are arguing over one planet when there are 3. The first planet has the rich mineral deposits the Velens need for their manufacturing. The second planet has deep oceans that would be perfect for Dranaxi colonization. The third planet is a gas giant that neither species has use for. She paused, letting that information sink in. Why not share the system? The Velens take the first planet. The Dranaxi take the second. You split the profits from any resources on the third planet. Both sides get what they need. No one loses. The chamber was silent. Hana looked around, worried she had made a terrible mistake. Then the Dranaxi representative moved to the platform. This solution is acceptable to the Dranaxi Federation, the aquatic being said through its translator. We never wanted the mining world. We only fought for equal access to the system. The Velen representative joined them. The Velen Collective agrees. We have no use for water worlds. This solution serves both our needs. Just like that, the dispute was over. A problem that had consumed months of council time was solved in minutes. Delegates whispered to each other. Some looked impressed. Others looked embarrassed that they had missed such an obvious answer. Hana bowed to both representatives and prepared to return to her seat. But before she could, a new voice rang out. A clever solution, the voice said. It belonged to an insectoid delegate with sharp angles and glittering eyes. But I have a question for the humans. Hana turned to face the speaker. I am Counselor Wexel. I represent the Chitath Unity. Yes, Counselor. Hana said carefully. You speak of peace and cooperation. Wexel said, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. But you come from a world of violence. Your species evolved to hunt and kill. You are stronger than us, faster than us, more dangerous than any species in this room. You terrify us simply by existing. The chamber went completely silent. This was the question everyone wanted to ask but had been too afraid to voice. How can we trust you? Wexel continued. How can we believe you want peace when your very nature is war? You could conquer any of us. You could take what you want by force. Why should we allow you into our council? Hana felt her mouth go dry. This was it. The moment that would determine humanity's future among the stars. She opened her mouth to respond, to defend her species, to explain that humans wanted peace despite their strength. But before she could speak, the alarm bells began to ring. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the chamber. An automated voice announced, "Hull breach in Docking Bay 7. Toxic atmosphere detected. All personnel evacuate." This is not a drill. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates rushed for the exits. Security personnel tried to maintain order. The holographic displays switched to show security footage from the docking bay. A cargo ship had suffered a catastrophic failure. Its hull had ruptured, spewing toxic chemicals into the bay. Wreckage was everywhere, and in the middle of the destruction, barely visible through the toxic fog, was a single Velen in a yellow uniform. "That's Prill," Yuna said, recognizing their guide from yesterday. "He's trapped." On the screens, they could see Prill lying under a piece of fallen equipment, not moving. The bay's atmosphere was filled with sulfur dioxide and carbon monoxide, deadly to most species, especially Velens. "Emergency response teams are mobilizing," a official announced. "Estimated arrival time 20 minutes. 20 minutes, Tay said. He pulled up his scanner and analyzed the atmospheric data from the bay. "He doesn't have 20 minutes. Those gases will kill him in 5. Day and Tay looked at each other. No words were needed. They both stood and ran. Day and Tay ran through the council chamber toward the exit. Behind them, Nari jumped up and followed. The 3 humans moved with speed that shocked everyone watching. To the aliens, they seemed to blur across the floor like predators chasing prey. "Wait," someone shouted. "You cannot." But the humans were already gone. In the chamber, panic spread. High Counselor Vest stood, his fur flashing bright warning colors. "Someone stop them! They'll die in that atmosphere." Hana and Yuna were already moving, but not running. They pushed their way through the crowd toward the observation deck that overlooked the docking bays. Dozens of delegates followed, some out of concern, others out of morbid curiosity. The screens throughout the chamber switched to show multiple camera angles of the disaster. Day reached the entrance to Docking Bay 7 first. Station security was there trying to coordinate a rescue. An officer in a sealed environment suit turned to face the humans. "Stay back," the officer ordered. "The atmosphere will kill you. We have rescue drones deploying in 15 minutes. "We don't have 15 minutes, Tay said, pulling out his scanner. "Look at the readings. He has maybe 3 minutes left." The security officer looked at the data and his expression darkened. "Then there is nothing we can do. No one here can survive that environment. The gases are lethal." Day was already checking his own scanner, analyzing the toxic mixture. Sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and traces of hydrochloric acid. It was a chemical nightmare. For most species, exposure would mean instant death. "We can hold our breath," Day said. 3 minutes, maybe 4 if we're lucky." "You will die," the officer said flatly. "Maybe," Tay said. "But we have to try." Nari arrived just as Day and Tay were sealing their collars and preparing their emergency oxygen filters. The filters wouldn't last long in that atmosphere, but they might buy a few extra seconds. "I'm coming too," Nari said. "No," Day said. "We need someone out here to coordinate. If we don't make it back, you tell them we tried." Before anyone could stop them, Day and Tay hit the emergency override on the bay door. Alarms screamed as the door opened. Toxic yellow fog rolled out, and the 2 humans ran in. On the observation deck, Hana gripped the railing so hard her knuckles turned white. The screens showed Day and Tay entering the destroyed docking bay. The fog was thick, visibility almost 0, but the humans didn't slow down. "They're insane," someone whispered behind her. "They're brave," Yuna corrected quietly. Inside the bay, Day could barely see 5 feet in front of him. The air burned his eyes and throat even through the filter. He wanted to cough but couldn't risk wasting air. Beside him, Tay was using his scanner to navigate toward Prill's last known position. The wreckage was everywhere. Twisted metal, broken cargo containers, sparking wires. The humans climbed over obstacles that would have taken most species hours to navigate. Their strength and agility, the same traits that terrified the Council, now meant the difference between life and death. There, Tay pointed. Through the fog, they could see the yellow uniform. Prill was pinned under a large piece of equipment. He wasn't moving, Day checked his scanner. 2 minutes of breathable air left. Maybe less. They reached Prill and assessed the situation. The equipment was heavy, probably half a ton. For most species, it would require machinery to lift. But Day and Tay weren't most species. On 3, Tay said, his voice muffled by the toxic air. They gripped the equipment. Their muscles tensed. 1, 2, 3. They lifted. On the observation deck, gasps echoed through the crowd as they watched the humans raise the equipment that should have been impossible to move. Slowly, straining, they lifted it high enough for Prill to be pulled free. Day grabbed Prill's limp body while Tay held the equipment. The Velen felt impossibly light, almost fragile. Day cradled him carefully, protecting Prill's body with his own as they navigated back through the wreckage. The return journey was harder. Carrying Prill meant moving more carefully. The toxic fog seemed thicker now, or maybe it was just that their air was running out. Day's lungs burned. His vision was starting to blur. Beside him, Tay was struggling too, but neither of them slowed down. On the observation deck, the crowd watched in absolute silence. Every species in the room understood what they were witnessing. These humans, these terrifying creatures from a death world, were sacrificing themselves to save one Velen they barely knew. 40 seconds left. 30. 20. Day could see the bay door ahead, but it seemed impossibly far away. His legs felt like lead. His chest was screaming for air. Tay stumbled but caught himself. They kept moving. 10 seconds. 5. They burst through the bay door and collapsed. Medical teams rushed forward, taking Prill from Day's arms. Other medics attended to the humans, giving them oxygen and checking their vital signs. Day coughed violently, his lungs clearing the toxic gases. Beside him, Tay was doing the same. Nari knelt beside them, tears streaming down her face. "You idiots," she said, but she was smiling. "You absolute idiots. Is he alive?" Day managed to ask between coughs. A medic looked up from where they were treating Prill. "Yes, thanks to you, he's alive. He'll make a full recovery." The observation deck erupted. It wasn't applause exactly, since most species didn't clap, but it was celebration, relief, joy. The sounds of dozens of different species all expressing the same emotion. Gratitude. High Counselor Vess pushed through the crowd to the observation window. He watched as the humans slowly got to their feet, refusing stretchers despite the medics' protests. He watched as they checked on Prill, as they made sure the Velen was really okay before they worried about themselves. "Bring them to me," Vess said quietly, immediately. 10 minutes later, Day and Tay stood before the High Counselor in a private chamber. They were covered in soot and chemical residue. They still smelled like toxic smoke. Their eyes were red and watery, but they stood straight and proud. Hana, Yuna, and Nari stood with them. The whole human delegation together. Vess looked at them for a long time. His fur cycled through colors that the humans still couldn't read. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "You risked death for one of us," he said. "A stranger. Someone you met only yesterday who fainted at your presence. He needed help." Day said simply, "We could help." It was that simple. "But you gained nothing from it," Vess continued. "You could have demanded concessions. You could have used the rescue as leverage in your petition for council membership. You could have asked for anything. Instead, you asked nothing." "That's not why we did it," Tay said. "I know," Vess said softly. "That is why I am going to do something unprecedented." He straightened, his posture becoming formal and official. "You asked how we can trust you. Counselor Wexel asked how we can believe you want peace when your nature seems to be war. I believe you have answered that question. Not with words, but with action." He turned and gestured to a screen. It showed footage of the rescue, of the humans lifting impossible weight, of Day protecting Prill's fragile body with his own. "You are strong, yes," Vess said. "You are fast and resilient and terrifying. You come from a world that tried to kill you every day. But that world also taught you something else. It taught you to protect the weak, to help those in need, to sacrifice yourself for others." He approached the humans, stopping at a respectful distance but closer than he had come before. "You could have demanded we fear you. Instead, you make us trust you. You could have demanded we serve you. Instead, you serve us." Vess did something then that shocked the humans. He bowed, deeply, a gesture of the highest respect in Velen culture. "Thank you," he said simply. "On behalf of Prill, on behalf of all Velens, on behalf of the entire council, Thank you, Hana felt tears in her eyes. Yuna was crying openly. Even stoic Tay looked moved. Tomorrow, Vess continued, straightening, the council will vote on your petition for membership. But I want you to know that regardless of that vote, you have earned something more valuable. You have earned respect. You have earned friendship. You have shown us that being strong does not mean being cruel, that being dangerous does not mean being destructive. He paused, and his fur flashed a color that Hana somehow understood meant happiness. Hope. Welcome. You have shown us that even those from death worlds can choose to protect life. That is the most important lesson any of us could learn. Morning on Harmony Nexus came with artificial sunlight that slowly brightened through the windows. Day woke to find his throat still sore from the toxic gases. His muscles ached in ways they hadn't in years. But he was alive, and more importantly, so was Prill. The other humans gathered in their common area, moving slowly and carefully. The rescue had taken its toll on all of them, even those who hadn't entered the bay. The stress and fear had been exhausting. Did we really do that? Nari asked, holding a cup of tea with shaking hands. Did that actually happen? We did, Tay said. He was examining his hands, which were covered in small cuts and burns from handling the wreckage. We saved him. Yuna was watching the station's news feeds on her datapad. Every channel was talking about the rescue. Footage of the humans lifting the equipment, carrying Prill through the toxic fog, refusing treatment until the Velen was safe. The story had spread through the entire station overnight. We're famous, Yuna said quietly. Or maybe infamous. I can't tell which. A chime sounded at their door. Hana opened it to find not a Velen guide this time, but a Dranaxi in its water-filled environmental suit. The aquatic being's tentacles moved in what might have been a friendly wave. Good morning, the translator device said. I am Ambassador Rith of the Dranaxi Federation. I wanted to personally escort you to the council chamber today, if you will permit me. Hana smiled. We would be honored, Ambassador. They followed Rith through the station. This time the corridors weren't empty. Other beings were present, going about their daily routines. And while they still kept a respectful distance from the humans, they no longer pressed themselves against walls in fear. Some even nodded in greeting. A few made gestures that the humans assumed were respectful. The station is different, Nari observed. People aren't as afraid. Fear is overcome by understanding, Rith said through the translator. Yesterday you were unknown. Today you are heroes. That changes everything. They entered the Grand Council chamber. The humans expected to be sent to the back row again. Instead, Rith led them to the front, to seats directly before the High Counselor's platform. The seats of honor. As the humans sat, the chamber filled with delegates. The mood was completely different from yesterday. There was no fearful silence. Instead, there was a buzz of excited conversation. Delegates pointed at the humans, not with fear but with curiosity and respect. High Counselor Vess called the session to order. His fur was bright with colors that Yuna had learned meant happiness and pride. This council session will address the petition of humanity for membership in the Galactic Council, Vess announced. His voice carried through the chamber. But before we vote, I believe we should hear from one whose life was saved by these humans. A door opened and Prill walked into the chamber. The young Velen looked tired but healthy. He made his way to the central platform, and when he passed the human delegation, he stopped and bowed deeply. The humans bowed back. I am Prill of the Velen Collective, he began. 3 days ago, I fainted when a human caught a falling datapad. I was terrified of these beings. I thought they were monsters from a savage world. I thought they would hurt us, conquer us, destroy us. He paused, and his fur flashed colors that needed no translation. Shame, regret, gratitude. Yesterday, I learned I was wrong. When I was trapped in toxic fog, dying, they came for me. They risked their lives, their health, everything to save mine. They had no reason to help me. I had shown them no friendship. I had feared them, avoided them, treated them as dangerous animals. His voice grew stronger. But they saved me anyway. Because that is who they are. They do not use their strength to take. They use it to protect. They do not use their speed to attack. They use it to rescue. They are not monsters. They are guardians. The chamber was absolutely silent. Every delegate listened to Prill's words. I vote yes, Prill concluded. I vote to accept humanity into our council. And I hope that someday I can call them not just allies but friends. Prill stepped down to applause and approving sounds from dozens of species. High Counselor Vess stood. Thank you, Prill. Now we will hear from Ambassador Park, who will formally present humanity's petition. Hana stood and walked to the platform. She had prepared a long speech, full of carefully chosen words and diplomatic phrases. She had spent months writing it, reviewing it, perfecting it. She didn't use any of it. Members of the Galactic Council, she began. I came here planning to give you 100 reasons why humanity deserves membership. I was going to talk about our technology, our resources, our potential contributions to galactic society. I was going to promise that we would be good members, that we would follow your rules, that we would not be a threat. She paused and looked around the chamber. But yesterday changed everything. Yesterday you saw who we really are, not through our words but through our actions. So I won't give you promises or speeches. I'll just tell you the truth. She took a breath. Yes, we're from a death world. Yes, we're stronger and faster than most species. Yes, we probably seem terrifying. But Earth made us more than just survivors. It made us protectors. When someone needs help, we help. When someone is in danger, we act. That's not just human nature. That's who we choose to be. Hana felt her voice growing more confident. We don't want to join your council to take advantage of you. We want to join because we believe in what you've built here. Peace. Cooperation. Different species working together. That's beautiful. That's worth protecting. And if you'll let us, we want to be part of that. She gestured to her fellow delegates. We're not perfect. We'll make mistakes. We'll probably accidentally break things or scare people just by being ourselves. But we'll always try our best. We'll always choose to use our strength to help, not to harm. We'll always stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. That's all we can offer you, Hana concluded. Ourselves. Exactly as we are. Strong, yes. But kind, fast, yes. But careful. Dangerous, yes. But only to those who would hurt the innocent. If that's enough, we would be honored to join you. If it's not, we understand. She bowed and returned to her seat. The chamber remained quiet for a moment. Then High Counselor Vess stood. The council will now vote, he said. All in favor of accepting humanity as the 48th member of the Galactic Council, indicate your approval. Lights began to illuminate throughout the chamber. Each species had their own method of indicating approval. Some raised appendages, some changed colors, some made sounds. But every single one of them voted yes. Unanimous. Hana felt tears streaming down her face. Beside her, Yuna was crying too. Day reached over and squeezed her hand. Tay and Nari were both grinning like children. The vote is unanimous, Vess announced. Humanity is accepted into the Galactic Council. Welcome, humans. Welcome to the galactic community. The chamber erupted in celebration. This time the sounds were joy, welcome, friendship. But Vess raised a hand for silence. There is one more matter to address. The Council has discussed a proposal overnight, and we wish to present it to humanity now. He turned to face the human delegation directly. We need you, not just as members, but in a specific role. Our galaxy faces many dangers. Environmental disasters, technical failures, situations that require someone to go into places too hostile for most species. We have drones and robots, but sometimes we need living beings who can think, adapt, and make decisions. Vess's fur flashed bright blue. We would like humanity to lead a new galactic emergency response force. You would be first responders for disasters. You would rescue those in danger. You would go into situations that would kill most of us. In short, you would do what you did yesterday, but on a galactic scale. The humans looked at each other, stunned. This was nothing they had expected. We understand this is a significant responsibility, Vess continued. You would need training in alien biology, environmental systems, and council protocols. We would provide all necessary resources and support. But the choice is yours. You may simply join as standard members if you prefer. Day stood. High Counselor, may we have a moment to discuss? Of course. The 5 humans huddled together, speaking in low voices. They debated, questioned, considered the implications. Finally, they reached a consensus. Hana stood to address the council. We accept, but on one condition. We don't do this alone. We want to train volunteers from other species. Share our techniques. Build a truly galactic response force. Because while we can survive harsh environments, we don't know your species, your needs, your biology. We need you as much as you need us. Vess's fur flashed with approval. A wise condition. Agreed. The Galactic Emergency Response Force will be a joint operation with humans and volunteers from all species. He raised his arms in what the humans recognized as a ceremonial gesture. Then it is settled. Humanity joins our council not as conquerors or servants, but as protectors. May this be the beginning of a long and prosperous friendship. The next few hours were a blur of ceremonies, introductions, and celebrations. Delegates who had feared the humans yesterday now approached them with curiosity and respect. They asked questions about Earth, about human culture, about how they had evolved such strength. Counselor Wexel, who had challenged them yesterday, approached Hana. "I apologize for my harsh words. I spoke from fear, not wisdom." "No apology needed," Hana said. "Your fear was reasonable. We do look dangerous, perhaps," Wexel said. "But I have learned that looking dangerous and being dangerous are not the same thing. You could have let Prill die. It would have been safer for you. Instead, you nearly died saving him. That taught me more about humans than any words could have." As the celebration continued, Day found himself standing at a window, looking out at the stars. Yuna joined him. "We did it," she said softly. "We're part of the galactic community." "We are," Day agreed. "But not the way we expected." "Better though," Yuna said. "We came here hoping to join as equals. Instead, we're joining as friends, as protectors." "That's better." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Nari's voice called out to them. "Captain, Ambassador, they want us for more introductions." Day laughed. "Duty calls. Come on, Doctor. Let's go make some friends." As they rejoined the celebration, Hana was recording a message to send back to Earth. "Mission successful," she said into her recorder. "Humanity has joined the Galactic Council. But more than that, we've found our place among the stars. Not as warriors, not as conquerors, as guardians, as friends." She paused, thinking about everything that had happened. The fear, the misunderstandings, the rescue, the acceptance. "We scared them just by existing," she continued. "But in the end, we showed them that the same strength that makes us frightening also makes us valuable. We can go where others can't. We can lift what others can't. We can survive what others can't. And we choose to use those abilities to help, not to harm." She smiled at the camera. "Earth made us survivors. But we choose to be more than that. We choose to be protectors. And I think that's something to be proud of." Hana ended the recording and looked around the chamber. Humans and aliens talking, laughing, learning from each other. The beginning of something new. Something good. They had come to a peace conference and accidentally scared everyone. But fear had turned to respect. Respect had turned to friendship. And friendship would build a better future for all of them. This was just the beginning.